Paul, how are you? Hello?
How are you?
I'm good. You?
Good.
All right. So this week, pretty fun. Like I said, it's still my favorite episode of the of the month, which is the rapid fire edition. So as it always goes, we've kind of prepared a bit in advance, and I'm just trying to realize I didn't pull up the questions, but I will go back and forth on a series of rapid fire questions. And so I'll let you get started while I pull up my questions for you.
Okay, so Fab, when and how do you decide whether marketing should be done internally or whether you should hire someone from the outside to do it for you?
Right. I think there's kind of three ways maybe you can look at it, or maybe they're all congruent. I don't know. But one, obviously, there's budgetary. It's usually cheaper to hire somebody externally to do something than to do it internally. So, for example, you might just want to hire like a Google ad, a firm to run all your Google ads and stuff like that. It's probably cheaper in the long run than to hire somebody in-house to do it. And it's also cheaper because maybe it's not your main strength, right? So maybe you don't want to develop this internal expertise on ads. It's something you need to do, it's something you want to do, but it's not an expertise you really feel you need to develop in-house, meaning you don't feel it's going to really move your business forward if you bring that knowledge in-house. Okay. And then to that point, it's just more a matter of like, do we need to have this in-house? I guess, it's a parallel kind of thinking, but is it worth having it in-house? Like, do we need to, but do we need to get some expertise, right? It's easy to get somebody to be like, oh, I'm going to, so-and-so is going to run the Google ads, but then you're realizing, well, maybe they're not that strong or whatnot. So, is your performance going to go down and so on and so forth? So I would say, is it worth? Yeah.
Let's say at a high level. So I understand that what you're saying makes sense, but let's say at a high level, a CEO is deciding, okay, how do we outsource this portion or that portion? Like, is there some kind of magic formula that you espouse to tell people, look, this is a formula you should be looking at to decide whether to do it internally or externally? I kind of know the answer to that, but I still want to hear you on it.
Is there a formula? I guess your formula would be like, how are you going to measure the performance of this expertise, I guess, let's say, so obviously the closer it is to revenue, the easier it is to measure. And you could be like, okay, well, at this point, I can afford to pay somebody, let's say $75,000 a year to do this. Because, in the end, I know my Google ads are driving, 1.2 million in business. So I'd rather bring it all in-house, and then it'll just be in a way more effective type of thing. But like I said, I think it also goes by, skill and competency and knowledge of the business, right? Does it make sense to have a marketing operations person when you're, an early stage startup? Maybe not. Right? But it's still important to have. So you might just hire somebody to do it externally and then eventually hire somebody as you get bigger.
Okay. All right. I'll let you ask your question. I've got a million questions spawning from this, and I might bombard you with an extra one.
All right. Should you set a clear promotion path for reps? Especially in the context where you have more junior people that are like the standard sales development or business development representatives moving to account executives. So should you have a defined path, or should it just be kind of?
So let me answer that question twofold. Okay.
Yeah.
For an individual, you should have a set path. So if you hire an individual who's going to come on board and you're hoping to make a career of it, you want to talk about their career aspirations. You want to talk about where they hope to go and what that path is, right? Should you set a specific path for general positions, like saying, okay, you come in, you're a cold caller, then you move to account management, then you move to farming, or you move to wherever, and then you move to sales management, then sales vice president? No, no. I firmly believe that. I think it depends on the individual's obviously competences and it also depends on the individual's desire. I myself, from the onset, always had a desire to do some sales management, and then I moved up to sales leadership, and now I run my own company, but I'm alone. But that's okay. This being said, when I was working with the different companies, my intention was always to move forward and move up in the management. But I knew some of my colleagues who had no desire to do that, zero at all. So if you have a set path for your company, it's a little counterintuitive. And even, some people I remember were internal salespeople, and you might say, okay, they do internal first, then do external. No, some people really like being internal sales. So I think what you need to do is set a path for growth within what you do. And that's important. So what does that mean for you 5 years from now? What does success mean for you, and what does success mean for us as a company? So path, yes, for the individual. As a general term, no, but you still want to set a path. You can have a general path, but not a set path.
Right. So, I mean, I guess, like you said, you should have okay, if I have a junior person, what are their potential options, right? The account executive, farming, whatever would be. And then if you feel that they're destined or they want to become account executives, this is how kind of working with them to acquire the skills they need to get to that stage. But if somebody wants to go into account management afterwards, well, here are the defined skill sets or competencies that they need to develop to get there.
And if I can bring it to a higher level for a second, what we do, what you and I do, is more, I think, of an art than a science. So there are some scientific aspects to the psychology of what we do, right? So how we affect people and how people listen and how people change their minds and how you introduce new concepts to people. But really, it's an art, right? Everyone reacts a little differently. So, if you look at it mathematically, if there was a mathematical formula, like 2 + 2 is always 5, then we would apply that and we would say, yeah, there's a set path. But in this reality, there is no specific mathematical formula, and that's why you're adjusting it to the individual.
Gotcha. Cool. You're there.
Okay, my question. All right. Okay, I'll skip my I'll go to the question I said I'd ask you. So how do you specifically upsell when you're dealing with a marketing client, and how does this apply to what you think other people in your business should do? So, I know you're a HubSpot expert, and you have a lot of clients right now, and so do you even upsell? Like, tell me a little bit of your feeling as a consultant. How someone in the marketing world, how do you go about doing that?
I think whether you're in the marketing world or any world, upselling has the same mechanism, right? You need to understand how or where you can upsell people, right? So let's say as a consultant, I might start a client out on a project because they have a specific need that needs to get accomplished. But I fully well know that, let's say, they probably also need some sort of longer term consulting. But if they're not ready to go ahead and sign, let's say, a full-on 6 months or 12-month retainer, I will be like, let's say, start on this project, and then we'll have a kind of end off that project, and then look at where we can branch off from there. So I think it's just you need to, as marketing, be able to identify how your different offers work together, and then, depending on who's actually in charge of the upselling, whether it's, the salesperson or customer service or whatever, just be able to flag opportunities for sales or customer service or whatnot. So let's say you offer, let's take you also as an example. You do evaluations, you do sales process, you do all that. So you might have them, but you also do recruiting. And so in the span of sales process, you might identify oh wait, this is a customer who'd be a good fit for recruitment because.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
No, but then because let's say a rep just quit, while you're working with them, that a rep is just quit. Identifying these triggers that would indicate that they are ready for more another product or another service. And
I agree with you, right, on the sales side. And the reason I wanted to say that in marketing is I think some consultants, correct me if I'm wrong, they just think, okay, I've got a client, they're going to keep trying to go forever. But I think what you're saying makes sense, because you're saying, well, there's specific things that I can offer. And once I've run the gamut and I've done what I need to do, your intention is to create independence, right?
Right. For me personally, yes. My especially with a platform like HubSpot, which is very, self-serve and easier to use. Like the end goal is to make them independent. That said, there are different needs that arise at different moments. So let's say we're building a specific marketing process, and then realize like, okay, well, maybe you're not generating enough, organic traffic leads. Let's work on a content strategy for you, or let's say I'm working with the sales team on enabling their salespeople, and we realize that, maybe their sales process is broken. I mean, in this case, I wouldn't do it. I probably would reach out to you, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of being aware of what your different offers are and when they're triggered in a way. And so if you sell a software, I guess it's a bit easier because you can actually track user engagement. But when you're in a service provider, it's just more being aware of at which moments are upsells relevant. I think the danger is trying to upsell too much too quickly, and stuff like that. I think to me, what's worked best is more like when it's triggered in a way, for lack of a better word. And it's fine. Like, some people are very small and they just do Google ads, and that's all they do is they Google ads, and that's all they can offer, really. And maybe their upsell is more a matter of like, like Google's working really well for you now. Have you tried Facebook or LinkedIn? Let me refer you to somebody or something to that effect. But again, I would, and then once you're aware of that, is trying to set up these mechanisms to be able to scale it. I won't say automated, but at least scale it so that you're like, okay, I know that when I see this, this, and this, that's usually a good trigger for an upsell conversation. In the same way that you would do with sales, right? If somebody's coming to you and I'm like, I'm losing $1 million a week in business because my salespeople aren't doing anything, I don't know what to do. That's a trigger for you in terms of an initial sale, that there's something there that you might be able to help with. Same thing with an upsell.
Okay. All right. Good answer. Thanks.
All right. So this one, I see a lot. Should I evaluate my reps before I hire them?
Well, I have a very firm belief on that. And so this answer is twofold. So the answer is yes, and a big capital Y, capital E, capital S. Yes, absolutely. And when I say evaluate, it can take different forms, right? Of course, what I do, and there's an evaluation I send out, I read it, I look over the answer, and then I challenge them with that when I speak to them. And it's based on a lot of knowledge that I've acquired over the years, things I've seen, things I've put together. And I do think that's very, very important. Now, here is my be careful, okay? Yes, you should evaluate them, but understand that in evaluation, the question can be interpreted in very many different ways. So, and the reason I say this is, like, a lot of people who create psychometric evaluations will say, no, you're going to know right away by how they answer. And, I'm sorry, bullshit. And I'll give you an example. There's an evaluation that I've created, for my own stuff. And I ask a few questions, which I thought were very, very clear. And what I've done with time is when I see an answer that I find is strange or good, even sometimes, I'll ask the person, well, what does that mean for you? And it can mean so many different things for different people. Right? And one of the questions I asked is, I remember, will you challenge? Are you willing to make someone uncomfortable if they're if you feel they're about to make a mistake? And a lot of people say, well, no, I'm not going to make them uncomfortable. But what does uncomfortable mean to them? Well, some people, uncomfortable is a terrible thing, and other people, well, it's just a little discomfort to get them to go to a better solution. So you've got to be careful. Yes, you should evaluate people, but any evaluation, any psychometric evaluation needs to be backed up by a conversation. Right. Now, if you do an evaluation and the person totally entirely sucks, and you're like, okay, well, this is, they don't at all have the qualities that they need to be an electrician, well, then you can put them aside if it's very specific things. But when you're dealing with things that can be interpreted, be careful in deciding, but just use it as a filter, not as a be all end all, right?
Gotcha.
So that's my answer. I know, and you're probably surprised a little bit because Yes, absolutely. But every evaluation deserves an interpretation. And look, I've done a bazillion psychometric evaluations. I've created a sales assessment myself, which is not psychometric at all. But I'm still careful, and I actually use it more as a training tool than I use it as an evaluation tool. Because to this day, and I've said this to you before, if someone has desire and intelligence, they can do pretty much anything.
Right. Cool. Thanks.
You're welcome. Sorry, I hope that was clear and concise. So my last question, and this is a strange one. You might say, well, it depends, but it's how large should your marketing team be? Is there, again, a formula or an approach? Let's say you're building a company from scratch, and you might say, well, look, you one marketing, when you run out of space, a second one. And then what should be the structure? Like the sales structure usually is very similar, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reps, one sales manager. If you have too many reps in one sales manager's team, they can't do the job. Is it the same thing for marketing? And in sales, it's very easy. Like, we need to go get this much revenue. We need a salesperson. Okay, we've capped out this person's capacity. We'll get another one. Mm-hmm. What, again, is your personal opinion, and what have you seen that's worked, and what would be your approach to that?
Mm-hmm. So, let's speak to like kind of a B2B enterprise, mid-market, like, because obviously if you're e-commerce, your marketing team will be much larger, for example, or if you're retail, your marketing team will be much larger. When we're talking about B2B, especially, like I said, enterprise, mid-market, where there's a sales team involved, usually it'll be fair to assume that your marketing team will be smaller than your sales team, because marketers work on scale, right? Like, salespeople work on one-on-one, so they need to have enough reps to be able to deal with these one-on-one relationships. Marketers work on scale, so that's why they tend to have a smaller team. In terms of when to hire, I'll answer that by saying, let's start by your first hire. Your first hire normally needs to be some sort of a generalist, somebody who could do a bit of everything, a bit of copywriting, a bit of video, a bit of social, a bit of organizing a trade show, stuff like that. Like master of none, just good at everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're probably going to want to hire.
You mean a jack of all trade and a master of all trades?
Yeah, exactly. Because you just don't want to hire like 16 people right out of the gate. You're going to want to hire somebody who can do it all. And I realize that's challenging at times, because what does all mean? Like, are they good? Are they good? And that's where you need to think of your next hire. So you're going to do your next hire usually when that one person kind of achieves a certain limit, right? They can't scale much more. They can't do much more, sorry. And so your second hire is probably going to be somebody who's going to be able to reinforce your first hire. And there's two ways to look at reinforce. Well, there's one way. With that one marketing person, are you able to identify what's going to set you apart from the others, right? So if you're having a marketing person, a generalist, but they're really good at copywriting, and your blog posts are amazing and your social posts are amazing and this and that, you're probably not going to want to go hire another content person unless you want to really double down on that effort. It's like, we need like 6 times more blog posts and stuff like that. So that's what I'm saying. You're going to want to start focusing on your, what some people call the moat, like something that really differentiates you from your competition, whether it's, the written content you put out, your trade shows you do, virtual shows that you do, like what's setting you apart. And that's where I'll end with this. And that's why the importance of the CEO comes in, because especially in a smaller organization, like the CEO needs to buy into what marketing is doing, right? Because if they hire a marketer who's like very big on lead generation, but your CEO is very big on branding, the CEO has never been quite satisfied with what marketing is doing. Marketing is probably going to feel that they're kind of capped in terms of what they can do. And so it's important to have like a good symbiosis between the two, and then really build off of that.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Thanks.
That was a long-winded answer. There we go.
It made sense, and it's the answer I was expecting, but it's a good one.
Nice. Thanks. So I will ask my last question. I think 3 questions each is a good formula. This one is very, very tactical. Should you have an on hold stage in your sales process? So, and if so, when do you determine when something's on hold versus lost? Because I'll give you maybe a tiny background. Is I've worked with somebody and they had like this on hold. I don't forget how they called it, and every deal would end up in there, right? And they had almost nothing in lost. And so I was like, that's kind of interesting.
Well, I think it's dangerous. Okay. I actually, in my own sales process, I have something called hibernation.
Right.
But I also have a loss, right? So it depends. And what do I put in hibernation? When I know that there is a chance, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, I take it out of where it is in the sales funnel and I put it in hibernation, because I know that, when you have to wait that long for whatever reason in what I'm doing, a lot of things can change. So this being said, I don't have objection to the on hold, but how it's used is very important.
Right.
Because if you're not going through the proper stages of your sales process and everything just ends up on hold, well then, no, it's not good. I'll give you a very specific example of what could be on hold. You talk to someone, everything's going well. There's a huge economic change, and you just, you fall in the priority sequence. Now you could leave it wherever you are in the stages of your their factory burned down, and they have to do that, and they have to spend 6 months doing that. Well, they're not really, you haven't lost them, right? But they really do have to focus on something else. So you could leave them in the stage of let's say they were just about to say yes, and you're just in your, a value proposition, and you're saying, well, no, I'm going to go put them on hold because I know it's going to be another 6 months, right? So it's on hold to go back into proposal value position, but you might have to re-question. People forget things. So I don't object to the on hold one as long as it's properly used.
Right.
And there has to be, and I think you should have some very specific reasons to, if I'm your sales VP or your sales manager, I'm going to challenge you. So why is it on hold? How come it's not lost? This, that. And if there's anything like, if you're just hiding behind a rock because you don't want to admit the fact that, your client's dating another person, then you're going to have to fess up. And it's better for yourself too, because then you'll stop, having unabashed hopes. But however, when I have something on hold, its value in my proposal in my funnel is 0.
Right.
Right. So the minute it's not like, it goes down to it's 0.
Right.
If something's on hold, the value is 0. It's like it's like pre first stage, right?
Right. Gotcha.
And I think that's important too, right? So if you're trying to keep up a pipeline, you put it on hold, but it's very close to lost, or very close to before you started.
Amazing. Thanks, Paul.
Hey, this is good, Fab.
Yep. Excellent. Always fun. Looking forward to next month.
Yes, my friend.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.